It's a nice atmosphere, new fresh air. We going out, hanging out like we don't care. We are new hunting party people. Ladies, they better get dressed. Good vibes in all.
Dream until I make it real, and all I see is stars. It's not until you fall that you fly. When your dreams come alive, you're unstoppable. Take a shot, chase the sun, find the beautiful. We will glow in the dark, turning dust to gold, and we'll dream impossible.
night, it's a nice atmosphere. New fresh air. We going out, hanging out like we don't care. We are new honey body people. Ladies, they better get dressed. A good vibes in our minds. Ain't nobody feels great like a good God, Lord. You know your life will be feast. Yeah, this place could be sweet, and you know what you need. I need my space, I hear the sound of your kiss. I can listen to your tightness and your pretty blending. Just come on, say why. Could you blow me in? Maybe I'm just not try. Maybe you're just struggling. What's your name, little angel? I ain't careful in the skies. Doesn't matter when I'm falling for eyes. In the flashing lights, don't recognize any face. If you want to know, I could find you some space. I leave the worry behind, don't need to think at all. Maybe you should fill your blood with some alcohol. Are you ready for the summer like that brand new healing? See a smile on your face, like if you know what I'm feeling. Thinking, oh, for now, this time gonna be crazy. All the patterns on my mind go down and hazy. Lighting up to the sky, let the universe know. Everybody getting high, just to go with the flow. No depression, no, better jump on the ride. If you wanna be my boy, I'm ready to fight, I'm ready to fight.
You fly
It's a nice atmosphere, yeah. New fresh air. We going out, hanging out like, yeah. We don't care. We are new hardy body people. Ladies, you better get dressed. The good vibes in all minds. Ain't nobody feels right like you do, bad boy. Know you like how it feels. That it's supposed to be sweet and you what you need. I'll be your space. I hear the sound of your keys. I can resist your guidance and your fleeting reckless. Just come and say why. 'Cause you know me, I'm in. Maybe I'm just a little dry. Maybe you're disturbing. What's your name, little angel? How you down in the stars? Doesn't matter when I'm falling for your eyes. In the flashing lights, don't recognize any face. If you want to know, I could find you some space. I leave the worry behind, don't need to think at all. Maybe you should feel your blood with some alcohol. Are you ready for the summer like that brand new healing? See a smile on your face, like if you know what I'm feeling. Thinking, oh, for now, this time gonna be crazy. All the patterns on my mind go down and hazy. Lighting up to the sky, let the universe know. Everybody getting high, just to go with the flow. No depression, no. Gotta jump on the ride. If you wanna be my lord, I'm ready to fly, I'm ready to fly. fly
of the Smart Parenting family. We're very, very happy that you can all join us online in the comfort and safety of your home. I'm Ana Gonzalez, the social media editor of smartparenting.com.ph. Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. Now, right now, we're going to talk about parental burnout. Ano nga ba ang parental burnout at bakit natin ito nararamdaman? Paano nga ba natin ito iha-handle at maiiwasan? Mayroon nga ba itong epekto sa mga anak natin at sa partner natin? Now, to help us answer these questions, we've invited Michelle Tambunting. She studied psychology in Wellesley College in Massachusetts and has a master's in education from Harvard University Graduate School of Education. She is currently training to be a conscious parenting coach and recently founded Happiness Class PH, where she trains children, families, educators, and anyone else to be chief happiness officers. Sobrang gandang pakinggan nun. Parang I want to be a chief happiness officer na rin. Thank you so much po for joining us today, Miss Michelle. Welcome po at sobrang excited po kami sa mga matututunan namin sa inyo.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Anna, and to all the viewers. Nice to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yan, baka after this session, pwede na kami maging mini Chief Happiness Officers, Miss Michelle.
That's the goal.
Okay, hindi ko na po patatagalin para mas marami tayong mapag-usapan. Napapanahon po kasi itong topic natin. We've been in this pandemic for more than a year now. So it's fair to say many parents are thinking and feeling burnt out already. May tinatawag na nga po tayong COVID fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
So, based po sa mga parents na nakausap ninyo, can you please share with us kung ano po yung mga pinagdadaanan nila?
Wow, I think, Anna, based on the people I've spoken with, I'm also kasi a well-being boost program facilitator. And I became one because of my own parental burnout. So I do the work that I do because I was once there, really in a place where that seemed really, talagang kung COVID fatigue, talagang all caps, bold fatigue. So I think it's it has a lot to do with the children learning from home. Tapos lahat tayo nasa bahay. There's no clear demarcation line kung kailan ba ang trabaho, kailan ang pagiging nanay, kailan ang pagiging tatay. So it's talagang, and plus there's all the fear that you feel. And at the same time, it's also that pressure and that, the fear, making sure that everybody is kept safe. But at the same time, you have to put up a very brave front and keep the family together as a parent. So talagang I feel that. I've heard a lot of stories from parents, a lot of experiences also with the families I work with at the school. But at the same time, it's really, I think everybody is going through their own struggle dito sa pandemic that we're going through. And I do the work that I do because I really was once there. Talagang naramdaman ko yun parental burnout to the max.
Oh, it's nice po kasi you are also sharing your experience kung paano niyo po napagdaanan yung sarili niyo pong parental burnout. I think that's very, very relatable. It makes it easier for the moms to feel na, hindi lang ako to. But I want to ask po, Miss Michelle, what does parental burnout look like po ba for mom and then for dad? Meron po ba siyang pinagkaiba?
When you think about it, parental burnout, it's not really, for me hindi siya gender specific in the sense that iba yung manifestation for a mother or a father. I think it's really on an individual basis. Kasi kanya-kanya, we each have our own threshold. And I've always been, based from experience, I'm a teacher. I've been in the classroom for almost 22 years. I have 2 children, a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old. I'm also a special needs mom. So I would like to think na yung threshold ko medyo mataas. Kasi, sanay ako, I'm used to kids, I work with kids. But you know what? I think the pandemic was the great equalizer. I think everybody, we all felt the fear and we all experienced it together. But what happened to me personally, and I think I share this kasi I'm a firm believer, Anna, na sometimes the story that we're hesitant to share could just be the story that somebody else is so needing to hear. Yun, I think we all had to really dig deep inside our hearts for courage this past year. Kanya-kanyang threshold. Tsaka hindi mo masasabing mas madali yung pinagdadaanan niya kesa sa akin o mas mahirap yung pinagdadaan kasi iba-iba tayo eh. And I think that's what parents need to understand. So if you ask me, how does parental burnout look like in a mother or a father? Maybe if you want to talk about gender-wise, we all know naman that men and women, di ba, we're very different. Di ba, we all have our own strengths. And with men, I think it's because they're very solutions-focused. Di ba, ako, whenever I think about my husband and how he tackles things, di ba, parang somebody once told me that, a dear friend, na minsan it's like a filing cabinet, yung mga lalaki. Yung parang bubuksan nila yung isang filing cabinet, I will tackle this now. Tapos ibabalik ko. Tapos next filing cabinet, sige, trabaho naman. Or next filing cabinet, sige, ito naman. Tayo, nakabukas yung buong filing cabinet. Lahat ng drawers, nakabukas. Diba? So we're very different. We can multitask. So I would like to think that parental burnout looks different in mothers and fathers. But definitely, it has a lot to do with the fatigue, with the exhaustion, with the, for some people, I mean, for me personally, I have always been one of the stronger ones. And I think that's why the pandemic was humbling for me. I can tackle and do anything so much, sabay-sabay. Kakayanin ko yun because I used to be just really a doer. I just would do and do and do. Hanggang it kind of caught up with me. And because of everything and all the hats I had to wear, I was diagnosed with anxiety last year, and I had to really kind of reassess how I was living my life. And that's the reason why I do the work that I do now.
When you experience na po na it caught up with you na, Miss Michelle, tapos ang dami ng hats, patong-patong na hanggang kisame na yung hats na suot-suot niyo po, how did you deal with it? Meron po ba kayong mga practical pieces of advice na pwedeng pulutin ng parents na nanonood sa atin ngayon para mai-apply nila sa pinagdadaanan po nilang parental burnout?
I think what my biggest learning last year, I'm a firm believer kasi is that when you surrender, God kind of just really takes over. So I guess when I was at the end of my rope, I realized that the energy that I was giving out to my family was not healthy for them anymore because it was di ba, alam mo yun, you're so stressed, you're so, and it's hard for me because I'm a teacher and sometimes I give the best that I can to my students, and then my children or my family, they get parang minsan naisip ko yung latak kasi you can be impatient with them, but with other people's children, you have to be patient, di ba? So, you know what my biggest learning was to learn to take care of myself. I always felt that self-care was selfish. But I was blessed to find the Wellbeing Boost program last year. And I went through that because I really needed it, really, really needed it. And then I joined a Sacred Space certification course last year as well, which made me a certified Sacred Space holder. But it was more, I did it for myself because I needed to learn how to create sacred space for myself. Kasi I realized wala na akong time na gano'n. And when I say sacred space, hindi lang yung physical space. Kasi sa bahay, wala na yung desk namin, shared space, shared working space, shared lahat. And it kind of just, you take for granted the value of really having your own personal space, which then I think really inspires you to create your own personal space for yourself. So yung biggest lesson ko last year was I took the Wellbeing Boost program to help myself, and I realized that it saved me from it. It really super transformed my life. I was always coming from a point of lack. Lahat tayo lack, di ba? Wala akong oras, wala akong energy, I don't have enough time. It's always from a point of lack. And I started to create more abundance for myself in terms of all of that energy, time, ideas. But more than anything, it was because I learned to really take care of myself. Yung self-care to its, I guess, to its deepest meaning. And that's my biggest advice for all the parents out there. Really reconnect with yourself. Kasi wala, it's so easy to be disconnected from ourselves and from each other during the pandemic because we're always on autopilot. We're always moving on autopilot. And ganun ako last year. So really live more intentionally, reconnect with yourself, and really tell yourself that self-care is not selfish. That's the most important thing.
What did you mean po, Miss Michelle, when you said na you felt self-care is selfish? Because I think hindi po sila makakross dun sa line na yun.
Mm-mm.
So even though they want to take care of themselves, they always feel na it's selfish. So how do we cross that threshold? And what did you mean po when you said na self-care is selfish?
So, di ba tayo, Ana? I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I feel it's a cultural thing that, and also as mothers or as parents, when we have our own children, a lot of it has to do with we give our all. It's I think it's also a Filipino thing na unahin natin yung iba kasi sa sarili natin. Whether you're a father or a mother, 'di ba? It's just what we are culturally. And I used to feel that focusing on myself should be the last. Everyone else should really truly come first before me. So, I lived like that. And I guess as a teacher also, you're very busy making sure that the children's well-being is intact and you nurture that in them, that you forget, many times you forget that your well-being and your self-care is important and should come first because you can't give from an empty cup, di ba? So yung threshold na sinasabi mo, yung crossing that line. And sa atin kasi when we say self-care, di ba, Ana, parang let me go get a mani-pedi, let me go to the spa, di ba? Yun, di ba, ganon. I realized for me, it was a deeper kind of self-care last year, which was to really acknowledge how I was feeling. Kasi as parents, I think when we have these emotions that we call negative, which we really shouldn't call negative, but like when we're exhausted, when we're tired, when we're sad, or stressed, we tend to push it down because we feel, ay, hindi pwede. Because I need to function, I need to do this, I need to do that. So we quell that emotion. And my means of self-care is really more sitting with my feelings, really saying, okay, then today I'm not very okay. And I acknowledge that and I honor that. And once we do that, it's easier for that feeling to dissipate because we've paid attention to it. Parang bata yan. Di ba yung bata, kakalibitin ka ng kakalibitin hanggang pansinin mo, di ba? Mommy, mommy. And we all have that inside us, that inner us, that inner child who's always asking for attention, and we're always disregarding that self for other people. And by doing that, we do a disservice, I think, to our family, because the energy that we put out to our family is just not, it's not the kind of energy that is healthy for them because we've not tended to ourselves.
I want to ask this po, Miss Michelle, for the moms who are alone at home. What if you have no one else but yourself, and no one else is going to do the chores, no one else is going to work, no one else is going to take care of the child? What is the simplest form of self-care that I can do if I'm home alone and I practically have to do everything?
Anna, this is gonna sound really weird because you'll probably say, everyday ginagawa naman natin yon. Find the pause in your breath. I know you think that you breathe like the whole day because if you don't breathe, mamamatay ka, diba? You know what I really realized is to really find that pause. And I learned how to meditate. I learned how to just pause for maybe 3 minutes or 5 minutes throughout the day when I can, to really find that pause in my breath. And when we breathe deeply and continuously for a short amount of time, we're allowing ourselves to to quiet down and to find stillness. And that's how I learned how to start creating sacred space for myself. Kasi ang totoo, pag natutulog yung mga anak natin or they're resting, what's your first impulse as a mother or a father? Uy, tulog. Ano pang pwede kong gawin?
Hugas
Habang
plato.
habang natutulog, gagawin ko to, gagawin ko dyan. Hindi natin alam na we're living in a parang frenzy eh. We're so frenetic already all day na we're always trying, it's always doing, doing, doing. So by breathing, it allows us to just be. When was the last time ba, di ba, we told ourselves na, alam mo, today, for an hour, I'm just gonna be. Di ba yun? Hindi ako magbabasa, hindi ako manonood ng YouTube, hindi ako magsusulat. I won't fill my time with something. Because the world's not gonna end naman eh. If you take 3 minutes to breathe,
Yeah.
hindi na mawawala yun. Anak mo, hindi naman masusugatan. You know, and you know what? This is, I had to look for practical ways to really remind myself to take those pauses. So I found a water bottle. This is so funny. I found a parang water jug on Lazada that had markings on it. Yun 7 a.m. the water level has to be here 9:11 ganyan. So I filled it up with water every day and it's by my desk and I drink it. And every time I take a swig, it reminds me to not just hydrate, which I think is very good for ourselves, but it reminds me that every time I take a swig of water or I take a sip of water, I need to pause for a few seconds. Whether I reconnect with God, I make the sign of the cross, I think I maybe a prayer of gratitude, but just a few seconds. So that's how many mga ilang sips rin yan throughout the day, di ba? So it's always drink your water, get this, get that, di ba? It's really finding the biggest pause in your own breath, and that's so easy to do. We don't have to buy anything, we don't have to reach for anything. Really to just be, to learn how to be and not feel guilty at all for doing that.
Yes, because sobrang mura lang, I think, ng bottle na yon. I saw that also. I think it's a good investment para, yes, to signal yourself. That's really good advice po, Miss Michelle. I think they struggle kasi talaga to find that simplest way to stop for a little bit. Now, this is really funny, no? Because when you're tired, for example, you feel really burned out, sa work, for example, you decide one day, oh, okay, I cannot take this already, so I'm just going to resign. With parental burnout, you cannot resign. You cannot say, here's my resignation letter, mga anak. Resigning from my post as your mom.
Yeah.
Now, inhale, exhale na lang po ba talaga tayo?
No, not at all. You know, I feel inhaling and exhaling and finding the pause in your breath is the first step. For me, it was the first step in a journey that allowed me to really look inside. Kasi when we don't allow ourselves to just be, nakakalimutan natin yung sarili natin eh. I became sort of like, this is so funny, I became sort of like a wellness addict because of the Well-Being Boost program. Kasi I saw how it transformed my life in terms of, not just me individually, but me as a parent, me as a wife, me as a leader in the school, or me as a teacher. It transforms everything that you are and everything that you do. So inhale, exhale is probably one of the biggest things you can do as a first step, because it allows you to tell yourself na pause muna. But once you feel that, and once you feel the peace that comes with it, you're going to want more in terms of, you'll see na, I have more energy, I have more patience, my mood is better. So after that, I realized it's really at the Happiness Studies Academy where I'm enrolled, and that's the reason why I'm trying to be a Chief Happiness Officer at Happiness Class PH. It's 5 things, and they call it the SPIRE model. So it's really, and if you can, as a parent, write this down intentionally on a piece of paper. I always tell my coachees or my clients or my people in Happiness Class PH, maybe 5 pieces of paper and 5 things. look at your, make, tend to a spiritual goal. And pag spiritual goal, Ara, hindi yun parang magno-novena ako ng 9 araw. Alam mo yan, or I will go on a 7-day silent retreat. Hindi eh. It's a spiritual goal. Something like maybe listening to maybe praise music first thing in the morning. Writing in my journal for maybe 2 minutes while you're having your coffee. Finding time for prayer. So that's spiritual. P is for your physical. I'm not saying go run a marathon or become a triathlete, but at least move 20 minutes a day. Because at home, di ba tayo, we're always on our desks if we're working. And sometimes mothers and fathers, we feel pag house chores, exercise na yon. O, Ana, isipin mo, pag nag-house chores ka, para kanino mo ginagawa yon? Para sa iba. Pero yun magsabi ka ng, okay, 20 minutes, just 20 minutes to myself. I will turn on a YouTube video, and it's free anyway. If you like to dance, that's also something. You can look for a video on YouTube. You can do a lot of home workouts that are free. Or you can do, gusto mo maglakad lang, umuulan sa labas, I discovered that, ang daming walk-in place for 30 minutes. You don't have to be a fitness addict to tend to your physical side. Because really, studies have shown if you do 20 to 30 minutes of movement 3 times a week, it ups your mood and it improves. It's maybe they say that one of the best medicines to fight against depression and anxiety. So really tend to your physical side. Your intellectual side, grow your mind. Hindi lang naman pwedeng, di ba, yun homework lang ng anak mo, multiplication table lang aaralin natin, di ba? Or, di ba, it's that. So, something for yourself, di ba? Reach for a book. Kung manonood ka lang ng YouTube, pag na yun, I mean, ako, that's my pastime. I will look for the funniest, siguro, vloggers and watch them. Biggest fans of the funniest vloggers. But at the same time, mamili ka siguro ng TED Talk or a YouTube, a podcast. Diba? For habang naghuhugas ka ng pinggan, pakinggan mo yung podcast for 5 minutes. Something that will fill your mind. That's I. And then R is relational, which is your relationships. Your relationships outside your home. Hindi lang yung pamilya mo. Reconnect with friends. May Zoom naman. Diba nga, call a friend. Make sure that you reach out to somebody beyond your home, where you're not talking about the stuff that you need to do, but the stuff that you want to do or you want to talk about. And E, the most important, is emotional, which is tend to your emotional side. And tell yourself, if I'm not okay, it's okay not to be okay. You don't have to be the perfect parent. During the pandemic, and I think every day, we should learn to be able to throw out that mask of strength. Kasi if we're also not able to show our vulnerability, our children will always feel the pressure also to have to be perfect. And that's the most painful kind of pressure you can probably give your children. So if they see you having a hard time, that's actually okay. Because if you acknowledge that you are having a hard time, then they too will learn to say, Mom, I'm not feeling so okay today. So you open up that communication at home about the E part of the SPIRE model, which is emotional. Really talking about your feelings. I'm not okay today, or Mom's been feeling a little stressed. Mom's feeling a little overwhelmed. Medyo harassed si Mommy today, ha? So let's slow it down. So you're embodying to your children kung paano ba how to tend to your emotional side. And I think that's the most important part of my professor's name is Tal Ben Shahar of the Happiness Studies Academy, and that's his model. And that's a model that I've shared with a lot of other parents. I run a coaching group for mothers. I call it the Mama Huddle, founded because I needed parang yung mama support group. So whatever my pandemic lessons were about myself, I share it, and they've tried to apply it to their lives, and they've been able to transform their everyday. And I think it's all about turning our ordinary tasks into extraordinary ones that parang siguro you tell yourself, dito lang naman ako sa bahay, what I do, it's not as maybe as important as maybe your CEO or your president of some big company. But you're nurturing lives and you're nurturing families. Kaya nga, Chief Happiness Officer. Kasi we have to look at our wellness so that we can nurture this in our families.
Miss Michelle, I hope you don't mind me for asking. When you, for example, acknowledge your negative emotions, you say that, hello, you're there, I acknowledge your presence.
Mhm.
And then, hindi po ba siya, paano po siya hindi magiging yung tinatawag nila na toxic positivity na, although you're not burying it down, you're saying hello to it, pero parang lagi ka na lang may pressure na positive thinking lang, ganyan. You mentioned po before nurturing gratitude. How do you do that without, number one, ignoring your negative emotions, or number two, becoming yung borderline toxic positivity na po na tinatawag nila?
Anna, when I think about it, acknowledging your feelings is very, very far from toxic positivity, because what you're doing is you are actually acknowledging na kunyari today malungkot ako. I will sit with my sadness and allow it, instead of, if you want to journal about it, if you want to call a friend about it, or just sit in silence, if you want to meditate or even say a prayer, find time for some silent prayer, but really acknowledging that emotion. So it's far from toxic positivity, because you're not telling yourself na, okay lang yan, there's so much to be grateful for, you have this and you have that. That's actually far from toxic positivity, because you're acknowledging how you're feeling. Now, when we look at gratitude, it's really more, I am a firm believer kasi na yung gratitude is one of the biggest skills we can give our children, because it teaches us to have more empathy. It teaches us to be more positive in a realistic kind of way. Because it's not as if you're grateful for something that doesn't exist. You're actually grateful for things that exist that you take for granted. Because when di ba, we take for granted, like Anna, you take for granted the fact that you're home. You can home, di ba? You take for granted that though working from home, you don't have to get stuck in traffic. You don't have to travel 2 hours to go to work and get there and you're already exhausted from the commute, di ba? Many times kasi, as human beings, our brains were so wired na we have this negativity bias, and it really comes from, it's in our DNA. It comes from the fact na hunter-gatherer tayo dati, di ba? So it was all about survival. So our brains have that. So when I say negativity bias, yun bang, di ba say nung bata tayo, di ba? Ilang beses mo ba narinig yun when you're broken-hearted? Let's say you break up with your boyfriend or iniwanan ka ng boyfriend mo. Ilang beses natin na inarinig yun, alam mo, Ana, iiyak mo yan ng 2 araw. Or cry for 3 days, and you know what? After that, okay ka na. Diba? When something good happens to you, does anybody ever tell you, kunyari na-promote ka? Diba? Nobody ever says, Ana, 3 araw tayo magse-celebrate ha kasi na-promote ka. Diba? Parang yung negative, we latch onto it so much because our brains are wired that way. Pero yun, let's say you lost 3 pounds at saka pinaghirapan mo ng pinaghirapan yon. Mas nasayahan ka siguro for 2 hours, 3 hours. Pero it's not a victory that you celebrate the way you celebrate a heartache. Yun, I'm going to grieve for a whole week and then I'll be okay. Di ba? Positive, hindi natin. So, alam mo yung idea of toxic positivity, I'm not a believer only because parang sa akin, it's a matter of rewiring your brain eh. Para mang tinuturuan magbisikleta yung brain mo, para hindi na niya makalimutan gawin yon. So, gratitude is being intentionally grateful, meaning just teaching your children, and you can do it while you're praying at night. If you're doing your family prayers, go around the table and do 3 things that you're grateful for. That's a struggle for me because I'm the only girl in my family. I have 2 sons and my husband. So, you know, difficult it is, and I have a teenager. So parang, at first, you know, parang it's medyo cheesy. What am I grateful for? Alam mo yun. But after a while, they get used to it. They get used to looking back at their day and figuring it out that there's still a lot to be grateful for despite or in spite of everything that's going on. So talagang ako, for me, Narinig ko yan, narinig natin yan all our lives. Be grateful, be grateful, be grateful. But it's only in the past year that I truly learned to be intentionally grateful and to grow that gratitude. Yung grow talaga. Like, okay, let's say, Anna, name one thing you're grateful for today. Like one,
Strong internet connection.
okay. So, strong internet connection. Let's try to grow that. O yung strong internet connection, Anna, what does it allow you to do?
Talk to you. And learn from everyone in the chat.
So when you learn from everyone in the chat and you, let's say, talk to people, what does that do for you?
It nourishes my social needs, I think, for connection, para I don't feel alone, makakita naman ng ibang tao.
When you're able to nourish that social connection, what does it allow you to do? What does it bring to you?
Happiness?
Diba? When you think about it, yung strong internet connection, kala mo yun lang. And you try to figure out, wait, what does it allow me to do? And then this, and then what does that allow me to do? And what else, what good does it bring to my life? So it's really, and you wouldn't have done that if you didn't pause to think about it. If you went about your normal day-to-day na, we had this conversation, tapos you went on to your next meeting or did something else, you would have totally missed the fact that strong internet connection actually brought you closer to people, which nurtured your happiness. So, di ba? And I'm sure that that lends some value to you as a person, and increases your well-being. So, di ba, it's really pausing to find the things to be grateful for and growing it.
It's super nice po because if you didn't allow me, if you didn't ask me yung question na yun, I wouldn't see it. Hindi ko din po siya pag-iisipan. If hindi ako tumigil, you're very correct po, Miss Michelle, if hindi ako tumigil to look at it, hindi ko siya marirealize na, yes, my internet actually makes me happy because then I can talk to people, I can watch my videos, I can listen to music.
Yes.
It's nice, mommies and daddies watching us now. This little pause lang, no, na we're taking na to be grateful na we're all here together. We have this ability to connect kahit magkakalayo tayo wherever you are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Miss Michelle, you mentioned po talking to your children about your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens po if, correct me po if I'm wrong, if you don't talk to your kids about your feelings, then they end up thinking na they also have to be perfect.
So I think what I was trying to drive at there is we oftentimes feel we shouldn't show our vulnerability to our children. I think doon tayo napapagod, Ana. Yun parang kailangan lagi akong malakas. Kailangan lagi akong, ganyan yung feeling ko, kailangan lagi akong si Barney the dinosaur kahit na may pinagdadaanan ka. Right? Okay, what message does this send to our children? It sends the message to our children that when we have negative emotions, and I say negative in quotes because yun yung biggest learning ko this year, was we always label negative emotions like sadness or anger or all disappointment, frustration. Basta it's negative, we always label it as such. And when we do that, our children feel na they're not right emotions to feel. But there's no emotion that's right or wrong, diba? All emotions are it's what we do with them. So what message do we send to our children when pag umiiyak yung bata, anong una mong gagawin? Tama na, di ba? Parang you become your helicopter parent where you're trying to appease the situation and appease your child and just make her or him stop crying. Because for you, the sadness is negative. And I get that. Because who wants to see your child? But what we fail to do there is we don't allow our children to work through that feeling. Teaching moment kasi yun eh. And it's a teaching moment for us. Kasi if we're not able to embody to our children na pag hindi ako okay or may pinagdadaanan na ako, not voice it out. Diba? How many of us were raised in homes where over the dinner table or it was a natural conversation to talk about your emotions? Hindi, diba? It wasn't, I never felt comfortable to, let's say, go up to my mom and we never really felt I never felt like we comfortable enough to have conversations about feelings. But that's also the reason why we have so much delinquency, and we have so many behavioral problems. We have so much addiction. We have a lot of that when they become teenagers and they become adults. It's because they tend to self-medicate kasi hindi nila alam kung paano, how to acknowledge how they're feeling and what to do with it. But if we start when they're 3 or 2 or 4, so early, and we make it as if it's parang riding a bike, yung hindi mo nakakalimutan. And that's the time I think we're given now because we're all at home together. And it's the perfect time to create that safety, that safe place for them to acknowledge their feelings. So what I'm saying there is pag may nararamdaman ka as a parent, I think if you don't acknowledge it, lalabas ng lalabas yun eh. Emotions are energy eh. When they come, they're not supposed to stay in our body. They're supposed to parang kind of pass through. Parang bus yun eh. May bus stop lang yan, may ilang seconds where you can either react or you can find the pause. And then it will just dissipate. But ang ginagawa natin, we don't acknowledge it, so we bury it inside. And then it comes out. It comes out in, mamaya masungit ka, hindi nila alam kung bakit. Bigla ka na lang puputok, hindi rin nila alam bakit. Or tatahimik ka na lang kasi you just don't know how to deal with it anymore and it's all inside. So, see, the energy that we give out to our family is not as healthy as if we were to acknowledge it. And if we do and talk about it, then our children will feel, oh, then it's good. It's okay to talk about emotions. So really giving them a vocabulary for the emotions is one of the most important skills we can give our young children these days.
Before we get carried away sa ating pause, I want to ask naman po, what are the next steps ni na mommy and daddy in case na parental burnout persists po? What other methods po ba can help?
You know, first, I think reach out to somebody because by doing so, you realize you're not alone. Hindi lang ikaw yung napapagod. You're not the only one exhausted. You'll hear stories from other people. I sought help in the sense na I knew it was really getting the best of me. So I enrolled in the Wellbeing Boost program, and I loved it so much. I became a facilitator. I wanted to be certified to do it. It helped me because if you feel na taking an hour during the week just for yourself is not possible, then I think you really have to rethink the way you look at your life and live your life. Because an hour just for yourself, let's say during the week to be with other people or to talk to other people is probably the most valuable thing you can do for yourself as a person and as a parent and as a spouse. So I did that. I sought help. I sought like-minded people, yung heart-centered people who were after the same thing, who wanted more growth, who wanted more to nurture their well-being. So really ask for help. Reach out to somebody. Take that pause. Yun importante. Stop trying to be perfect because nobody is, right? Just show up. That's what I started to do. I just need to show up. And then I firmly believe that God takes care of the rest when you surrender it. But find the time to truly reconnect with yourself. Kasi yun ang importante. If you're not connected to yourself, then it's difficult for you to care for yourself. And if you don't care for yourself, it will be harder for you to care for the people you love.
Oh, that's all the time that we have, Miss Michelle. But we do want to thank you po for sharing with us yung Spire, your Wellness Boost program, acknowledging our feelings, and most especially taking the time to pause. So much learnings po from today. I hope you moms and dads learned a lot din po at punong-puno ang inyong mga notepads na mga notes na magagamit natin next time that we feel overwhelmed. Now, we hope that you learned a lot sa mga sinabi ni Miss Michelle. Most importantly, sana po ang ating talk ngayon ang makapagsimula ng inyong journey to be a healthier, more mindful, and present parent. Ayan. Don't forget to visit our website, smartparenting.com.ph, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel din po. Malay nyo makita natin doon si Miss Michelle at mas pwede pa kayo mag-rewind, pause para mas ma-absorb ninyo ang ating mga lessons. Thank you so much po, Miss Michelle. Sobrang dami po naming natutunan today. Now, please invite our viewers to your classes in case they need more help pa po when it comes to dealing with parental burnout.
Yes, I would. First and foremost, Anna, thank you for para lang tayo nagkwentuhan. This was a nice break for me this morning. But to all our parents out there, I would like to invite you first to the Wellbeing Boost program. It's not just for parents, it's for all kinds of individuals who are looking for the time to really nurture their wellness. As a parent who was really burnt out, it truly saved me, and it started a wellness journey that I will forever be grateful for. We also have Happiness Class PH, so visit us on Facebook. Send a request to join our Facebook group, our private group, and our public group as well, and follow us on all our social media. We have live free classes for children of all ages and families, but we also have digital classrooms that you can explore together as a family. And we talk about all kinds of topics that have to do with what Anna and I just talked about today, for the children, for the parents, and for the entire family. So our goal is to be able to train chief happiness officers for the home, and that's your children and that's you, in a very simple but fun way. So that's it.